No one remembered his name that morning. No medals on his chest. No scars on his face. Just a young rookie standing alone at the edge of a forest, gripping a weapon he had barely trained with, watching the ground shake as 3 German Tiger tanks rolled toward him like steel monsters awakened from hell. Veterans would later swear this moment never made sense. Strategists would argue for decades that what happened next was impossible. And yet, in just 12 minutes, this unknown soldier would do something so shocking that even the enemy commanders refused to believe the report until they counted their losses. This is not a legend. This is not exaggeration. This is the story of how raw fear, split-second decisions, and brutal courage rewrote battlefield logic forever. The morning air was heavy, thick with smoke and the metallic taste of burned fuel, as the rookie crouched behind a shattered stone wall that once marked the boundary of a quiet farming village. The village had no name anymore. Maps burned faster than houses in this war, but its ruins whispered of lives interrupted, broken doors, overturned carts, and children's shoes half buried in mud. The rookie had arrived only hours earlier, reassigned after his unit was wiped out in a night artillery strike. He wasn't supposed to be here. In fact, according to orders, no one was. Command believed the area was already lost. But war doesn't always wait for permission, and neither did the Tiger tanks now advancing from the fog. He could hear them before he saw them, the low, grinding roar of engines powerful enough to flatten buildings, the rhythmic clank of interlocking steel tracks chewing the earth apart. Each sound struck his chest like a hammer. Tiger tanks weren't just machines, they were psychological weapons. Their armor was legendary, their guns feared, their reputation enough to break entire defensive lines without firing a single shell. Most soldiers froze when they heard that sound. Some ran, others prayed. The rookie did none of those things, not because he was brave, but because fear had locked him into stillness, a frozen moment where instinct took over. In training, however, Little screamed at him to stay low and stay silent. The first Tiger emerged from the mist like a moving fortress, its massive gun barrel sweeping slowly left to right, searching, hunting. Behind it came the second, then the third, spaced perfectly, advancing with the confidence of predators that had never been challenged. The rookie's hands trembled so violently he thought he might drop his weapon. His breath came in shallow bursts, fogging his vision. Somewhere in his mind a calm voice whispered the truth. You are already dead. And yet in that same moment, another thought surfaced, sharp and defiant. If I'm dead anyway, then nothing I do now can make it worse. The battlefield around him was a graveyard of failed defenses. Burned-out anti-tank guns lay twisted and useless. Craters marked where artillery had tried and failed to stop the German advance. The rookie knew the statistics. He'd heard them whispered in barracks late at night. One Tiger tank could survive dozens of frontal hits. Infantry were supposed to avoid them, mark their position, and retreat. But there was no one left to mark anything. Radios were silent. Retreat routes were already cut off. He was alone, not by heroism, but by abandonment. As the tanks moved closer, the ground vibrated harder, knocking loose stones from the wall above his head. Dirt rained down onto his helmet. His heart pounded so loudly he feared the tank crews might somehow hear it through inches of steel. He forced himself to observe, to think, to analyze, because panic would kill him faster than any shell. He noticed the spacing between the tanks, the slight delay in their movement, the way the lead Tigers slowed briefly near intersections, cautious of ambushes that never came. That hesitation was small, almost invisible, but to the rookie it felt like a crack in a concrete wall. He remembered a half-forgotten lesson from training, something an exhausted instructor had muttered while pointing at a chalkboard smeared with diagrams. Tiger tanks were nearly invulnerable from the front, but they were still machines. Engines needed air, tracks needed traction, crews needed visibility. No tank, no matter how powerful, was invincible when blind, immobile, or confused. The problem was getting close enough to exploit that weakness without being erased from existence. The rookie waited. Seconds stretched into eternities. Sweat soaked through his uniform despite the cold. When the first Tiger passed his position by less than 20 meters, the noise became unbearable. A thunder that shook his bones. He could smell it now, hot oil, exhaust, burning metal. The tank didn't see him. Its attention was forward, always forward, toward enemies that no longer existed. That was when the rookie realized something terrifying and incredible at the same time. He had become invisible, not because he was hidden well, but because no one expected resistance from a single man. He crawled, slowly, painfully. Every movement felt like it echoed across the battlefield, though in reality it was swallowed by engine noise. His elbows scraped against stone and glass. His knees bled through his trousers. Still he moved inch by inch, closing the distance that doctrine said was suicidal. The second Tiger rolled past him, its turret turning briefly toward the ruins before moving on. For one frozen heartbeat, the rookie stared directly at the black eye of the gun barrel and waited for death. It didn't come. When the third Tiger passed, the rookie was already behind them. What happened next was not a burst of courage or a cinematic charge. It was calculation under pressure so intense it bordered on madness. He selected his first target not by rage, but by logic, the rearmost tank, the one least likely to be immediately supported. He checked his weapon again, hands steady now in a way they hadn't been all morning. Fear hadn't disappeared. It had transformed into focus, sharp and cold. The battlefield, just minutes ago dominated by unstoppable steel, had shifted in a way no one would have predicted. The rookie rose slightly from cover, eyes locked on the massive machine ahead of him, fully aware that the next 12 minutes would either erase him from history or carve his actions into it forever. And the Tiger tanks, symbols of dominance and terror, continued forward, completely unaware that the most dangerous threat they would face that day was already behind them. The rookie adjusted his grip and took one last breath, not to calm himself but to mark the moment, because something deep inside told him that once he moved, time would behave differently. The tanks ahead continued their steady advance, engines roaring with arrogant confidence, crushing debris beneath their tracks, as if the world itself existed only to be flattened under German steel. He moved when the sound peaked, when noise became cover, when chaos wrapped him like a cloak. Every step forward felt like crossing an invisible line, a boundary no infantryman was meant to cross alone. The distance between man and machine shrank until the heat from the engine vents prickled his skin, until the tank no longer looked invincible but mechanical, complex, and, most importantly, human-built. He focused on the rear Tiger, the one lagging just a fraction behind the others. Its engine deck vibrated violently, metal plates rattling under stress. The rookie remembered another half-buried lesson. Power demanded cooling, and cooling demanded exposure. He did not rush. Rushing would mean mistakes, and mistakes meant death measured in milliseconds. Instead, he waited for the exact moment the tank slowed again, its crew cautious at a crossroads littered with rubble and abandoned defenses. The hesitation lasted barely a second, but it was enough. He moved fast now, sprinting from cover to shadow, every muscle screaming, lungs burning, mind frighteningly clear. He reached the tank's rear just as it began to accelerate. For an instant, the rookie stood so close that he could have reached out and touched the armor. With his bare hand, the sheer size of the machine dwarfed him, made him feel insignificant, like an insect daring to challenge a beast. And yet, in that moment, he understood something most soldiers never did. Tanks were terrifying from a distance, but up close they were blind, deaf, and dependent on coordination that could be shattered by one well-placed act. He acted without hesitation, executing a move rehearsed only a handful of times in training, a move most instructors assumed their students would never be desperate enough to attempt. The explosion was not cinematic. It was brutal and sharp, a concussive blast that slammed into his chest and knocked him backward onto the ground. Flames erupted along the engine deck, black smoke pouring into the sky like a signal flare announcing the impossible. The Tiger lurched violently, tracks grinding as the driver fought to regain control. Inside the tank, chaos erupted, alarms blaring, crew shouting over one another, visibility reduced to nothing but fire and smoke. The machine that moments earlier symbolized dominance now screamed in mechanical agony. Wounded and confused, the rookie didn't watch it burn. Watching would waste time, and time was the one thing he didn't have. He rolled to his feet and ran, heart pounding, ears ringing, expecting at any second to be torn apart by machine gun fire. It didn't come. The other two Tigers reacted, but not with the precision expected of elite crews. Shock slowed them. Confusion fractured their response. One turret swung wildly, scanning for enemies that weren't there. The other tank braked hard, its commander desperately trying to understand how a rear unit had been crippled without warning. That hesitation, the same hesitation the rookie had noticed earlier, returned, magnified by disbelief. Tank crews were trained to fight armies, not ghosts. They expected anti-tank guns, coordinated ambushes, airstrikes. They did not expect a single soldier moving between ruins, with the confidence of someone who had nothing left to lose. The rookie used their confusion as if it were a weapon. He disappeared into the rubble again, circling, repositioning, forcing the tanks to split their attention. Each second that passed without a clear target tightened the knot of fear inside the steel hulls. The second Tiger fired blindly into the ruins, its main gun blasting apart buildings that had already been destroyed once before. Masonry exploded outward, dust clouds swallowing the street. The shockwave slammed into the rookie, throwing him against a wall and stealing the air from his lungs. Pain flared through his ribs, sharp and immediate, but he forced himself to move again, dragging his body through debris as shells screamed overhead. The tanks were no longer advancing. They were reacting, and on the battlefield, reaction was the first step toward defeat. He emerged behind a collapsed house, its roof caved in, walls hanging at unnatural angles. From there, he could see the second Tiger clearly, its massive turret slowly rotating as the commander searched for an enemy who refused to reveal himself. The rookie's hands were raw, blistered, streaked with blood, but his grip did not loosen. He waited for the turret to turn away, exposing the side armor just enough to matter. His breathing slowed, not because he was calm, but because his body had accepted the reality of what he was doing. Fear no longer argued, it obeyed. When he struck again, the battlefield changed permanently. The blast echoed louder than the first, a thunderclap that rolled through the village. Ruins and sent a column of smoke, spiraling upward. The second Tiger shuddered violently, then stopped. Its turret froze at an awkward angle, gun barrel drooping slightly as if exhausted. Flames licked along its side, crawling like living things over steel. Inside, the crew scrambled, trapped in a nightmare they could not see and could not escape. 2 tanks disabled, one remaining, the third Tiger now alone. Did something tanks were never meant to do. It hesitated completely. Its engine idled, tracks motionless, turret spinning in tight, frantic arcs. The commander could not understand what he was facing. Reports over the radio made no sense. No enemy units spotted. No artillery fire, no air support. Just destruction appearing from nowhere. In that confusion, doctrine collapsed. Fear filled the vacuum. The rookie watched from cover, chest heaving, body screaming for rest. He had already exceeded every limit his training had ever prepared him for. And yet, as he looked at the final Tiger, still alive, still dangerous, he understood the cruel truth of the battlefield. Stopping now would mean dying anyway. The tank would eventually find him. The tank would eventually fire. Survival demanded completion. He shifted his position one last time, moving slower now, injuries catching up with him, muscles trembling under strain. The smoke from the burning tanks darkened the sky, turning the morning into something closer to dusk. The world felt unreal, as if he had stepped outside of time itself. Somewhere far away, artillery thundered. Somewhere else, men screamed. But here in this shattered village, everything narrowed to a single confrontation between one exhausted rookie and the last Tiger tank. The final 12 minutes were still ticking, and the most unbelievable moment was yet to come. The last Tiger tank moved cautiously, tracks grinding over rubble with deliberate menace, its turret sweeping side to side as though it sensed the unseen threat. Lingering in shadows, the rookie, crouched behind the remains of what had once been a bakery, could feel the heat from the burning tanks behind him, smell the acrid smoke and burning fuel curling into the morning air. His body was screaming in protest, hands shaking, knees scraped raw, lungs burning, but a strange clarity had taken hold. Fear had not disappeared. It had sharpened into something almost surgical, guiding every thought, every movement, every heartbeat. He could see the commander through the vision slit of the turret. A man trained to kill, confident in the power of his machine, yet now every second of hesitation was recorded in his eyes. The rookie knew that hesitation was his advantage. The tank was powerful, yes, nearly invincible from the front, but even the best trained crews could make mistakes when faced with something they could not understand. And the rookie had become something they could not comprehend. He was no longer just a man. He was chaos incarnate, a phantom of the battlefield exploiting every flaw, every predictable move the Tiger offered. He inched forward inch by painstaking inch, feeling the uneven ground tear at his boots. One wrong step could reveal him. One wrong move could end him instantly. But he had learned something crucial from the first two tanks. Tanks relied on certainty. They needed to know their enemy, and they did not know him. Every second the Tiger hesitated, the rookie gained an advantage. He pressed the detonator to the charge. He had hidden beneath the rubble. Near a narrow alley the tank had to cross. The placement was risky, too close, and the blast could kill him, but it was the only chance. His fingers were numb, sweat slick on his skin, yet he pressed the detonator with absolute resolve. The explosion ripped through the air with a deafening roar, a violent shockwave throwing him into a heap of splintered wood and stone. Flames licked across the armored hull of the tank as its tracks buckled, throwing it sideways into the remnants of a collapsed wall. Dust and smoke filled the street, choking vision and sound alike. For a moment, the world seemed suspended in chaos, a tableau of destruction with only one man standing amid the carnage. The last Tiger, crippled and immobilized, looked like a wounded animal, and the rookie knew he had just rewritten the rules of survival. He didn't pause to watch it burn. He moved forward through the smoke, crawling over rubble, feeling the heat from the fires bite at his skin, until he reached a vantage point that offered a full view of the village street. The silence after the explosions was almost unnatural, broken only by the creaking metal and occasional small flare of fire from the ruined tanks. He allowed himself a moment to breathe, chest heaving, mind racing. The enemy soldiers would regroup soon, of course, and when they did, they would expect a standard battlefield, a predictable pattern. But the rookie had turned predictability into illusion. He had become something larger than himself, a one-man tempest that the most fearsome machines could not account for. Minutes passed, though it felt like hours. He felt pain radiate through every joint, every muscle, yet his mind was razor-sharp. The first Tiger's remains smoldered behind him. The second lay crumpled across the street. And the third, though not destroyed, was incapacitated, its crew trapped in a tank that had been reduced to an immobile fortress of fire and steel. He knew the German reinforcements were coming. The moment of relief would be fleeting. Yet, for a brief, impossible instant, the rookie had not just survived, he had dominated. Reshaped reality, made impossible feats look almost casual. And then came the distant rumble, the sound of engines beyond the forest line, the unmistakable approach of reinforcements. The rookie's eyes narrowed, scanning the horizon for their first move. He did not flinch. He could no longer flinch. The past 12 minutes had stripped him bare of hesitation, leaving only instinct and raw determination. Every step forward now was deliberate, every movement calculated. He understood that the next wave would be bigger, faster, and more lethal. Yet he also understood that the world had already witnessed something extraordinary. One man, armed with nothing more than courage, wit, and sheer willpower, had challenged 3 Tigers and survived where armies had failed. Smoke curled into the morning sky like a warning signal. Flames danced on steel like a grotesque symphony of war. The village, once a quiet place of simple lives, had become a crucible where legends were forged in fire. And the rookie, still unnamed, still unknown, stood at the center, bruised, battered, and utterly unbroken. He allowed himself a single thought, sharp and defiant. They will not believe this. They cannot believe this, but they will remember it. The 12 minutes were nearly over. The battlefield had shifted. The enemy had learned a lesson they would carry for the rest of the war. And the rookie? He had not just survived. He had become a symbol of something that no textbook, no training manual, no doctrine could ever teach, that courage, cunning, and relentless will could turn even the most impossible odds into victory. The last Tiger tank shuddered violently under the rookie's relentless assault, a colossal machine now reduced to trembling steel, fire licking its sides and crew trapped in panic. Every instinct screamed at him to stop, to retreat, to live another day. But he knew this was not a moment for hesitation. History did not favor the cautious. He pressed forward, exploiting every shadow, every crumbling wall, every narrow alley that could conceal him from the enemy's gaze. The battlefield had become a maze of smoke, fire, and twisted metal, and he moved through it like a phantom, unseen yet devastatingly effective. The enemy reinforcements were arriving faster than anticipated, armored vehicles and infantry spilling into the village like a tide. But the rookie had already transformed the terrain into his own advantage. Craters, fallen beams, and burning tanks were no longer obstacles. They were traps, walls, and cover. He struck again, taking out a scout vehicle with precision that belied exhaustion, forcing chaos among the advancing troops. Confusion spread like wildfire. Soldiers shouted orders that no one could obey. Officers tried to reorganize, only to find their tactics collapsing before their eyes. What they faced was not just a man. They faced a force that defied logic. An unpredictable storm they could neither anticipate nor counter. Time had stretched and bent around him. The 12 minutes that had started with the approach of 3 Tiger tanks had now stretched into an eternity of calculated strikes, evasions, and survival. Every hit, every explosion, every moment of daring courage had shifted the balance. By now, the battlefield was littered with destroyed machinery, burned-out vehicles, and stunned enemies who could not comprehend what had unfolded. The rookie had rewritten the rules, turned the invincible into the vulnerable, and the impossible into reality. And then, in the final act of this incredible struggle, the last Tiger, its engine smoldering, turret frozen, tried one desperate maneuver. A frontal charge toward the rookie's position, hoping sheer mass could crush him into the rubble. But the rookie anticipated it. Moving with the fluidity of a seasoned predator, he baited the tank into a narrow street, where the wreckage of the first 2 Tigers funneled it perfectly. With one last precise strike, using the knowledge of angles, terrain, and timing he had honed in the preceding chaos, he disabled the engine completely. The Tiger lurched to a halt, smoke curling from its exhaust, turret locked, a monstrous testament to his relentless ingenuity. Silence followed, not the peace of safety, but the stunned, brittle quiet of disbelief. Enemy troops froze, unsure whether to advance, retreat, or surrender. From the horizon, distant artillery roared, but it felt irrelevant. The rookie had already rewritten the narrative. He stood alone amidst fire, smoke and ruin, bruised, bleeding, and exhausted but victorious. The impossible had been achieved. 3 Tiger tanks had been neutralized by a single soldier in 12 minutes, a feat that would shock historians, soldiers, and enemies alike for decades to come. The aftermath was more than physical destruction. It was psychological devastation. Reports would later describe the frozen faces of German commanders, the trembling of reinforcements who witnessed what a lone rookie had done, and the whispers among infantry who could not believe that courage, instinct, and determination had toppled machines designed for dominance. This was not a story of luck. It was not a story of divine intervention. It was the raw, brutal truth. One man, armed with nothing more than courage, clarity, and relentless willpower, had changed the course of a battle and carved his name into legend, even if history itself might forget it. And as the smoke cleared, the fires burned low, and the battlefield fell silent, the rookie looked at the horizon. His body ached in ways words could not capture, yet his mind remained unbroken. For a fleeting moment, he allowed himself a thought that would last a lifetime. They underestimated me. They always do. And today I made them pay for it. The story would spread, distorted by rumors, exaggerated in taverns and barracks, mythologized in histories, but the truth, raw and undeniable, remained: 3 Tiger tanks versus 1 rookie. 12 minutes, impossible victory. And in that victory, a lesson echoed across every battlefield, whispered in every soldier's ear: courage, ingenuity, and relentless willpower can turn even the most hopeless fight into legend. You think what you just witnessed was incredible. You haven't seen anything yet. This rookie's actions are a reminder that war is not just about machines, numbers, or strategy. It's about human will. One man facing impossible odds became a force armies feared and historians couldn't explain. Like, comment, and subscribe if you want more. Stories of soldiers who defied logic and rewrote history. Turn on notifications, because next, we dive into battles so unbelievable, you'll question reality itself. And remember, history remembers the brave, the bold, and the ones who refused to surrender, even when the odds were 0.